living every day in fear of their tanks and bombs. Throats and crops are dry as waters diverted from their homes. Everyone is responsible for what they do today. So Israel, for this genocide, you shoulder all the blame. Where's your humanity? Can't you hear their calls from the hungry, the sick and the dying, and those you trap behind your apartheid wall? Oh, Palestine, your hopes and dreams are just like mine, because we're all humans. Now you have to fight just to exist. Oh, Palestine, with all of your might, resist.
I'm here to help other people in the struggle who are trying to help Palestine get the things it needs to be free and let the people live as safely as possible. And we need to end this occupation and free Palestine.
We're here to show solidarity and support for the people in Palestine that are stuck basically in the ghetto in Gaza. They're cordoned off by the Israeli government. It's been that way since Operation Cast Lead. And the people there deserve the opportunity to live a full life and have the opportunity to speak out against what's going on in Israel right now. We support, just bottom line, the people that are being oppressed in the Gaza Strip. This letter is to the President of the United States, Barack Obama. Dear Mr. Obama, we are writing to inform you that 50 unarmed Americans will soon be sailing in a U.S. flagship called the Audacity of Hope as part of an international flotilla to Gaza. Our peaceful demonstration will challenge Israel's blockade of Gaza, which has effectively imprisoned 1.6 million civilians, almost half of whom are under the age of 16. The blockade has impoverished the people of Gaza, deprived them of the need of materials and supplies to the ill and infirm from seeking outside medical aid, and prevented students from seeking education outside of Gaza. 45% of the working age of population is unemployed in the Gaza Strip. In addition to 36 passengers, 4 crew, 10 members of the press, our boat will carry thousands of letters of support and friendship from people throughout the U.S. to the women, children, and men of Gaza. There will be no weapons of any sort on board this ship. We will carry no goods of any kind for delivery in Gaza. Our mission is from the American civil society to the civil society of Gaza. We do not serve the agenda of any political leadership, government, or group. We're engaged solely in non-violent action in support of the Palestinian people and their human rights. In our country's great tradition of citizen activists taking non-violent action to stand up for injustice, we sail in the hope that our voyage will show the people in Gaza that they are not alone, that it will call attention to the morally and legally indefensible collective punishment of a population of civilians. Mr. President, you have noted the unsustainability of the Gaza blockade, and your administration has spoken boldly in support of peaceful demonstrations throughout this Arab Spring. As U.S. citizens, we expect our country and its leaders to help ensure the flotilla's safe passage to Gaza, as our country should support our humanitarian demand that the Gaza blockade be lifted. This should begin by notifying the Israeli government in clear and certain terms that it may not physically interfere with the upcoming flotilla, of which the U.S. boat, the Audacity of Hope, is part. We, authors, builders, firefighters, lawyers, social workers, retirees, Holocaust survivors, former government employees, and more, expect no less from our President and your administration. Our boat will sail from the Eastern Mediterranean the last week of June. We shall be grateful to you for acting promptly and decisively to uphold the rights of civilians for safe passage on the seas. Sincerely, the passengers of the Audacity of Hope.
This is a message from Kathy Kelly, who's on the Audacity of Hope. I'm going to be a passenger on the Audacity of Hope, the U.S. boat in this summer's international flotilla to break the illegal and deadly Israeli siege on Gaza. Organizers, supporters, and passengers aim to non-violently end the brutal collective punishment imposed on Gazan residents since 2006, when the Israeli government began a stringent air, naval, and land blockade of the Gaza Strip
explicitly to punish Gaza's residents for choosing the Hamas government in a democratic election. Both the Hamas and the Israeli governments have indiscriminately killed civilians in repeated attacks, but the vast preponderance of these outrages over the length of the conflict have been inflicted by Israeli soldiers and settlers on unarmed Palestinians. I was witness to one such attack when I was last in Gaza 2 years ago under heavy Israeli bombardment in a civilian neighborhood in Rafah. This is what Kathy Kelly says. Israel pounded civilians in Gaza, turning villages, homes, refugee camps, schools, mosques, and infrastructure into rubble. The attack killed 1,385 Palestinians, nearly a quarter of them minors, with an uncountable number more to succumb in the months and years following to malnutrition, disease, and suicidal despair, the consequences of forced impoverishment under a still continuing siege that salts Gaza's dreadful wounds by preventing it from even starting to rebuild. Gaza is an example of a society that has been deliberately reduced to a state of abject destitution. Its once productive population transformed into one of aid-dependent paupers. After Israel's December of 2008 assault, Gaza's already compromised conditions have become virtually unlivable. Livelihood, homes, and public infrastructure have been damaged or destroyed on a scale that even the Israel Defense Forces admitted was indefensible. In Gaza today, there is no private sector to speak of and no industry. We must not turn away from suffering in Gaza. We must continue trying to connect with Gazans living under siege. The Israeli occupation of West Bank and Gaza, amounting to what is internationally recognized as an apartheid system, could end in peace, with Israel abandoning paranoia and racial violence to allow peace.
Apartheid ended in South Africa without the wave of bloodshed and reprisals that its supporters claimed to fear. They achieved greater peace and safety for themselves and the children by finding the courage to finally allow peace, safety, and freedom to their neighbors. It's a lesson the U.S. government has all too often missed. This June, the governments of Israel and above all the United States must finally embrace the audacity of hope. Free Palestine!
This is another piece by Alice Walker. The boat is called Audacity of Hope because hope is audacious. That is part of its energy for change. But I will also be flying the colors of Andrew Goodman, James Chaney, and Michael Schwerner, 2 Jewish young men and 1 Christian black man who died trying to help us end American apartheid, injustice, and brutality in the South, in Mississippi.
What we learn from helping each other free ourselves is that liberation, in order to remain in force, must be used constantly to help free others. Not only humans, but other animals, plants, water, mountains, the earth herself. Saying never again must mean never again will we let it happen, whatever the atrocity is, because we understand our duty to stand against it, to the extent that we can do this. And we grasp the importance of not singling out only our own nation or tribe for protection. It is freedom itself that we protect, justice itself that we stand up for. We support the common good because we are all, after everything is said and done, children of the same planet.
We're Earthlings, whether we live in occupied Palestine or in Tel Aviv, or Northern California, where the abuse and destruction of native peoples 150 or so years ago was similar to what is happening now in Palestine. Sometimes the medicine we bring to others isn't tangible. Hope itself isn't a tangible thing. What is it? It is not even a gossamer, but it has infused the lives of oppressed people everywhere they suffer on the planet. South Africa is perhaps even a better example than the American South, or India, or any of the old colonial outposts where the people thought they'd never breathe a free breath again. One poem, one song can unlock the prison door, because the strongest prison is the one oppressed people inhabit after years of being ground down in their own minds. Any boat that leaves the shore in order to help others has already landed, whether it ever docks or not.
Our boat, the Audacity of Hope, will be carrying letters to the people of Gaza, letters expressing solidarity and love. That is all its cargo will consist of. If the Israeli military attacks us, it will be as if they attacked the mailman. This should go down hilariously in the annals of history. But if they insist on attacking us, wounding us, even murdering us, as they did some of the activists in the last flotilla, Freedom Flotilla, what is to be done? I see children, all children, as humanity's most precious resource, because it will be to them that the care of the planet will always be left. One child must never be set above another, even in casual conversation, not to mention in speeches that circle the globe. As adults, we must affirm constantly that the Arab child, the Muslim child, the Palestinian child, the African child, the Jewish child, the Christian child, the American child, the Chinese child, the Israeli child, the Native American child is equal to all others on the planet. We must do everything in our power to cease the behavior that makes children everywhere feel afraid. I once asked my best friend and husband during the era of segregation, who was as staunch a defender of black people's human rights as anyone I'd ever met. How did you find your way to us, the black people, who so needed you? He recounted an episode from his childhood that had led him inevitably to our struggle. He was a little boy on his way home from yeshiva, the Jewish school he attended after regular school let out. He was alone. He was frequently harassed by older boys, and one day 2 of these boys snatched his yarmulke and, taunting him, ran off with it, eventually throwing it over a fence. 2 black boys appeared, saw his tears, and took off after the boys who had taken his yarmulke. Chasing the boys down and catching them, they made them climb the fence, retrieve and dust off the yarmulke, and place it respectfully back on his head. It is justice and respect that I want the world to dust off and put, without delay and with tenderness, back on the head of the Palestinian child. It will be imperfect justice and respect because the injustice and disrespect have been so severe. But I believe we are right to try. That is why I sell.
Take a handful of rose petals to toss over the railing as a symbolic launching.
I'd like to invite you first to take a really deep breath of air, and as you exhale, let's think of the blanket of air that surrounds the earth and reaches all around to all the people, including the people in the Mediterranean, in Greece, on the boat, and in Gaza, and how we're connected to those people physically as well as emotionally. And as we launch our boat in solidarity, let's think about how the water of this lake goes down the Colorado River to the Gulf of Mexico and to the Atlantic Ocean and eventually to the Mediterranean and to those same places. So today we're going to christen our boat, our solidarity boat, with the words of encouragement. And as I pour the water, I encourage you to shout out some words of peace and encouragement. Salam, shalom, peace.
Justice for Gaza.
Free Gaza.
Bon voyage.
Bon voyage.
Peace and justice.
Occupation is a crime, it's not meant to be this way. Palestine for Israel, Afghanistan and Iraq for the USA. Why should all this go on for hatred, greed and lies? Till we finally stand together, how many have to die? There is no reason we should be in constant war. It's time for all people of all nations to rise together to say no more. Oh, Palestine, your hopes and dreams are just like mine. 'Cause we're all humans. Now you have to fight just to exist. Oh, Palestine, with all of your might, resist.